Dive into CELPIP reading part 3. This is a very difficult part just next to part 4, which is the hardest. And we're going to cover part 4 as well in the next video, so please subscribe if you haven't already. Part 3 gives you a bunch of paragraphs. This is a sample test, and you have E at the end, which says not given in any of the paragraphs. Then you get questions. You get questions 1 to 9 usually. And what you got to do is match these sentences with the paragraphs. So you have to find, for example, whatever is mentioned in 2, is it mentioned in C, B, whatever. Okay? If you cannot find the answer for 2 anywhere, you put E next to it, which means it's not given. Okay? This is a big confusion because a lot of times you'll feel that the words are not given because they're paraphrased, but they are given in fact. So today we're going to tackle all of this and discuss how to spot not given. I'm going to give you such a simple strategy. Like if you have been trying hard on this, you're going to feel a little silly when I tell you how easy it is. And we're going to look at the main strategy, 2 main strategies that people use. Okay. Strategy number 1 is they look at question number 1 and they read it. They're going to go in paragraphs A, B, C, D. And then they're going to say, okay, 1 maybe is E, I couldn't find it, or 1 is C, whatever. And then they're going to move on to 2 and then continue the same thing. All right, strategy number 2, and I'm going to tell you which one is better. Strategy number 2 is they read all the questions, 1 to 9. Okay, that's a lot to remember, but we're going to get into that later. So you read all the questions and then you go to paragraph A. Read it, understand it, then you match it. Okay, so you're going to say, all right, paragraph A matches maybe 2, maybe also 4. Okay, so I got 2 answers, great. Let's go to paragraph B, read it, come back and match it, and so on. Which strategy do you use? All right, now that you have answered that, which do you think is better? If you said strategy number 1 is better, you are dead wrong. You're going to waste lots of time in the exam and you're going to be highly inaccurate and really stressed. Use strategy number 2. It makes so much sense to use it, and I'll tell you why. Questions number 1 to 9. First, we're going to read them, okay? And I'm going to first read them to show you how to spot keywords. So the first question says, park visitation is dependent upon approval from Aboriginal nations. Okay, so Aboriginal nations is a keyword. Why do I say it's a keyword? Is because it cannot be paraphrased. I mean, yeah, you can call it First Nations or natives, but Aboriginal is the main term. And even if it's not, very close words would be obvious, like you would know it's First Nations or something similar to that. Park visitation, it is something to do with visits. There are very few synonyms for visit. So this and this are good keywords. These 2 are good keywords. Number 2, regulated commercial activities are carried out within the park's boundaries. So I would say commercial activities is a good keyword. It's not as good as Aboriginal nations because this can be paraphrased in a lot of ways. It could be, they could say market forces, they could talk about buying and selling and shopping, etc. So not the best keyword, but it is the keyword in this sentence. And so on and so forth, okay? Probably the best keyword that I found among all of this was Aboriginal. Throughout, we see that, and in the paragraphs too, it mentions that. I also thought, and we're gonna get to this one, I also thought this was a very good keyword. I didn't think they will paraphrase it, but they paraphrased the heck out of that, and I'll show that to you in a second. So the one thing is, when I'm looking at the questions, I'm looking at keywords, okay? Because it's impossible for any one of us to remember all the questions. So we're just looking at a few keywords. We're also, number 2, gonna look at the words that can be paraphrased, and we will paraphrase them in our head before we go into the paragraphs. This will keep you one step ahead of the examiner, because examiners are paraphrasing everything when it comes to the paragraphs. So let us do that first before we fall into their traps. I already did that with Aboriginal nations. Let me do a little bit more here about park visitation. So it could be park visitation is dependent. I could say parks timings are based on, okay, or the duration you can visit the park is based on this criteria, and so on. Okay, so I got a few synonyms here. Approval could mean many things. It could mean maybe they don't say the word approval. Maybe they say a synonym, or they might even just change the sentence and they might say, you need to get a signature of a manager. Okay, so that would mean approval. So what I'm doing is I'm paraphrasing it in my head first and looking at it from different angles. Now let's look at the whole sentence and paraphrase the whole thing. Okay, park visitation is dependent upon approval from the Aboriginal nations. Let me say it in a different way. If you want to visit the park, make sure you get a signature from the Aboriginal nation's chief. Or let's try another way. You cannot enter the park unless you have an approval from a senior manager in the Aboriginal community. So any of these things, first of all, can be mentioned as it is. So if it is mentioned in the way I paraphrased it, I'll catch it instantly. If it's not mentioned that way, at least I understand the concept. Now, anything about this, anything related to approvals, Aboriginal people, visitation, I can catch. But this took me a while. It took me a while because I'm explaining. But it also will take me a while if I'm doing it the first time. If I do this in my head, it's going to take me maybe 10 seconds. Okay? Once you practice the skill and you do this with multiple questions, you practice multiple readings, you will get better at this. And why it is so important for you to do is because when you go in the passage and you look at all these things, they're going to be highly paraphrased and very hard to catch. Keywords are also not going to be the exact same. So first of all, it's going to help you if it's highly paraphrased, which it usually is. A lot of times you have to get the interpretation too, right? So this is not IELTS. This is not where a keyword is mentioned as it is. In fact, in IELTS also these days, it's really paraphrased. So we're looking at the meaning. And if we can find something similar to the meaning, you win, okay? The other thing is this helps you in memory. This is a very important thing to know. I told you to read all the 9 questions. How do you remember it? If I am not looking at just specific keywords and paraphrasing of those words, but I'm looking at the concept, now I'm able to paint a picture in my head. So I'm thinking, all right, I'm walking into an Aboriginal office, getting an approval from their managers. This is a moment in my head now. It is vivid. It's a picture. It's not just words. So if anything similar to that is mentioned, I'll be able to catch this. I think there was a mind power expert, Harry something, I forgot his name. He told us the same thing. If you want to remember something, make images of that. All right, so if you want to remember how to draw a duck, think of 2 ducks because you draw a number 2 and then you can make a duck or a swan with it. So it's something related to that, which is called mind technique. I don't remember the book. I would quote it here if I could, but it is all about making pictures, imaginations, and using that to remember. That's exactly what we're doing here in questions 1 to 9, paraphrasing, remembering the concept, and interpreting it. So as I said earlier, I want to go to question number 9 because this is where this trick really helps. So I'm thinking here, the park is site to a Canadian geographical landmark. This should be easy to find. I mean, you cannot paraphrase a landmark. But let me do that, okay? Let me think, okay, maybe they're going to say it's the highest peak in Alberta, or it is the main volcano in the park, or it is the peak of something, or it is at the bottom of the ocean. It's a big thing, maybe like Niagara Falls. Okay, now let me go up. So we're going to read paragraph A, and of course you're going to go down, but I want to show you paragraph B because that's where the answer for this is. This is the answer right here. It includes the St. Elias Mountains, where the highest peak in Canada, Mount Logan, is located. It doesn't say anything about a geographical landmark, but it just says it's the highest peak in Canada. So that automatically means it's the geographical landmark, and it is in Canada. So again, it could be, I don't want to say usually, because it could be the same word, but it could be highly paraphrased. So you have to understand the concept of it. And that's why I mentioned all those details earlier. It helps you understand the paraphrasing, get the concepts, helps you remember all 9 questions because you paint a picture in your head, and helps you quickly answer. All right. Last thing, whatever you have not answered is E. Simple as that. Okay. So you're going to go to paragraph A, you're going to answer a bunch of questions B, C, D. Whatever number is left, it's simply E. Okay. That's how you do, not given, not that hard, but the other stuff is hard. And we have a lot of details here. I'm skipping a bunch of details because it is going to be a 1 hour long video if I do. There are some hidden parts here, some sentences, some phrases that you need to be aware of. There are more strategies to tackle different types of part 3 questions, and we have explained all of them in our course. The link for our course is in the description. Right now, reading is a nightmare for our students, for anyone who's doing CELPIP, so I highly recommend checking almost our 2 hour long video in our course. We also include 5 mock tests that reflect the real exam's difficulty level. So if you haven't checked that out, do that before your exam. It's right now at a 20% discount. Link is in the description. And if you liked this video, if it helped you in doing part 3, please like, share, and subscribe. We'll talk soon. Take care.